Welcome to my daily review. Today is Wednesday, April 30th, the last day of the month of April. And I was saying yesterday, if the Nasdaq didn't crater like 168 points, it was going to have an up month for the month of April. And it was only down, wow, only 14 points today, huh? It was a very important day today, a constructive day, because we had bad news on, macroeconomic data, and the market sold off initially, and it came down and it kissed the 21 here, traded slightly below it. You could see it, the 21 is 16,997 today, and it traded down to 959. So a little undercut of the 21. But to me, what's important here is it found support at the 21. And the 10 EMA is now crossed above the 21. To me, this is a bullish sign. Still has a lot of work to do. It's below the 50, 0.8% below the 50, 4.8% below this black line, which is the 200. So it has a lot of work to do. But closing above the 21 for the fifth consecutive session, support at the 21, all that's really important in my opinion. We'll take a look at a 5-minute chart. You can see the gap down this morning came down to that number there, 959, immediately found support and rallied back up. So it was just a kiss, a little support, and then boom, off we go. And I wanted to point out, well, a couple things here. Besides the 10 going through the 21, and we have support at the 21, and it only being down, 15 points or 0.09%, it closed at 17,446. So way off of the lows. What did I say? The low was 959. So yeah, nearly, 500 points off the lows. So it closed kind of with a hammer candle there near the highs of the session. So, and then we have news tonight. So it leads me to believe that it wants to trade higher. We're going to see if it can power through that 50 tomorrow. So a constructive day, an important day, and some people, told me in pre-market they were selling their stock. I'm just going, don't do that. First of all, pre-market, you just observe, not a lot of action to be done in pre-market, a bunch of hyenas trading pre-market, and then they had to buy those things back later. And I'm going to get to that in a minute. But I just wanted to point out the volume here up 3%, but you got to disregard the volume when we see crap like, WW. This is up, 250 million shares traded, which is skewing the data on the Nasdaq, and that's why the SPY is a little different. But yeah, that's why the data on the Nasdaq is, there's a lot of stocks that trade on there, and a couple of 2 or 3 penny stocks trading like that can really skew the data here. So yeah, the last couple of sessions here, we've seen heavy volume this week, but it's mostly penny stocks. So you got to go to the average dollar volume. Anyway, constructive day. We saw support, and also on the month, I had mentioned that this would have been the third month in a row lower if we'd closed like, I don't know, down 100, I don't know, was it 660 points? So we eked out 147% gain for the month of April, 0.85%, to avoid this 3-month slide, which we haven't seen since the summer of 23 and the bear market here of 22. And it's pretty rare to be down 4 months in a row for the Nasdaq. I don't know how far you have to go back. I'd have to look at that. That's for a different time. Looks like back here during the that 11, yeah, 2011. So it's like 5 months. Anyway, I digress. A solid day for the Nasdaq as we found support, we bounced off support, and that's critical. And I think just as critical, even more so, as the 10 now is above the 21, and we're heading in the right direction. I've got to talk a little bit about the SPY too, because the SPY only has, excuse me, the S&P 500 index, it only has 500 stocks. So out of those 500 stocks, we did see some strong volume today, 1% above the 50. So those penny stocks are not in the S&P, and we still saw some decent volume. The S&P 500 was up 8.23 points or whatever, 8 points, 0.15%. So it eked out a small gain while the Nasdaq had a small loss. Part of that was the Dow Jones Industrial Average up 141 points. I know McDonald's was having a good day today, and I'm not going to go through the Dow 30. But anyway, I want to get to something that I think is important. We're in the midst of earnings season. And we've seen a lot of earnings recently. We've had some very strange reactions to earnings, but I'm just going to go through a couple that reported last night. And, Snap had a report without guidance, and you could see it just got rejected at the 50 there, down 12% today. SMCI did not report earnings. They just lowered guidance, and it was down, what, 12%. And this is what happens when you buy stocks below the 200. Oftentimes, it's a game of probabilities. Now, sometimes you'll find stocks below there and they rip higher, and you see people picking bottoms, and I bought it at 27, it was up to, whatever. But the probabilities are against you here, and normally they're down there for a reason, and SMCI showed us that reason today. App Lovin, another one below its moving averages here, got rejected at the 50. It had like three short reports recently, so really showing a lot of resilience. It was what, Fuzzy Panda and the Bear Cave, and I don't know who else. Citron. I don't know. A lot of people have been shorting it now. Another company came out this morning, but it held up pretty well, only down 6%. Rejected at the 50, so it has work to do to go through the 50, but I digress. I want to go through earnings. Last night earnings, Starbucks, Wall Street's in love with their CEO, and to me, he's just kind of full of hot air here. They're getting their lunch eaten literally and figuratively by Dutch bros, no doubt about it. This thing was down today, down to like 75, rallied back up, closed at 80. The CEO is selling a bill of goods, but you cannot deny this negative same-store sales. I mean, you can't hide that fact, and they're getting market share taken from them. I'm going to say Dutch Bros. It could be other players in the market. Dunkin' Donuts. Heck, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that Dutch Bros is doing well, and Starbucks is not. And the CEO can talk all he wants. And then Wall Street loves him, so there's something to be said for that. He's got credibility because what he's done in the past. But Starbucks is not doing well, folks. First Solar, yeah, okay, down 8%. That one's in a world in its own bear market. QRVO, Cuervo, which is one of these, not a tequila, but it was up 15%. This is a semiconductor name. And a lot of the semiconductors are sold off pretty sharply recently. You could see down from 117 here to 49. That's a lot of pain, but rallied back through its 50 today. So good for Cuervo. Another one that's in the cosmetic space is Oddity Technology, Israeli company. And a nice move today, up 30 something percent. And for the week, it's up 38%. So nice move, 8% move heading into earnings and a 30% move with earnings. And we haven't seen a lot of stocks breaking out like that. So I'm going to pay attention to that one, breaking out of a base there. ODD is a ticker symbol. GEHC, this is GE Healthcare. They reported. Obviously, this thing's been battered. February, March, and April, they're just not great months. I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat it. A lot of stocks got hammered, sold off. You could look at it two ways. You could say, wow, I lost a lot. This is in my portfolio and it sucks. Or, I got to buy this thing at 57 or 58 or 60, and now it's trading at 70. So it just depends on your entry point. That's not a stock that I'm interested in, by the way. Just wanted to point that out. Caterpillar reported this morning. Not a great report, but it's the response to the report, and it was flat on the session while the I guess the indexes, you can call them flat. Heavy volume though. I mean, it didn't sell off with that. These are big red numbers. It's not a great report. Anyway, I'm going to move on from Caterpillar. Generac. This is a power generator company. And once again, these things have been slaughtered. A lot of stocks look like that, and I'm not interested really in bottom feeding. Decent report, decent, response. 1% move higher, so you can't complain about that. Humana reported today, up 1%. 8% sales growth. Yeah. WDC and Seagate, two computer data storage stocks reported. And this is a real cyclical business. And I thought, the cycle was just getting started. And then, you can see this, the earnings line heading due north. So we're in a new cycle here going north, but the stocks are not going north. Maybe they will now. Western Digital, nice rally above all moving averages with volume today up 8%. And then I mentioned Seagate reported last night. Nice report, nice response to that report. That was a really nice report from Seagate, real strong, up 12%. So nice move. Couple others, COCO, Vita Coco. Okay, nice move that you can see. This has been, a lot of pain here, 40 down to 25. We don't like that. And then Wingstop. Nice move for Wingstop. When I see stuff like this, Wingstop up 15%, I look around at some of the other, eateries or restaurant, and they're just flat. So there was no pin action here on Wingstop's move here. Texas Roadhouse just kind of flat. Kava, I just showed you, kind of flat. Shake Shack reports tomorrow, so we'll see what they have to say tomorrow. But yeah, the only one that I saw that was really doing well, I mentioned McDonald's in the Dow Jones. It was up 1.5%. But yeah, Wingstop. So if you own Wingstop, good for you. And then the last one I'm going to cover, a lot of earnings, and I'm not even scratching the surface on earnings. But booking, this one looks, trading tight within a base, pull back to moving average, and then ripped higher, closed near the high. That to me, that's a buy, trading tight within a base. And now is shaking some fools out. Let's see what that open looked like. Yeah, look at that. Shook everybody out. We got buyers coming in. I mean, this thing's what, a $5,000 stock? But the blue dot, indicating the relative strength and still consolidating within a base, but it's trading tight within a base, now showing strength, a bullish engulfing candle. A lot to like there with booking holdings. All right, I'm just gonna go through some leading stocks because to me, when the index gets a little wonky, I just look for the leaders and how are the leaders reacting, because you can't have a stock market rally without leading stocks. And if the leaders are going to crater, then I'm out. I don't want any part of a rally where the leading stocks can't, at least they don't have to go up 5, 6%, but as long as they stay flat and don't crater with the market. So I'm looking at stocks like Netflix, which broke out. Ooh, cool color on the chart there. Maybe we should go green because it was a green day. It's been green for I don't know, like 10 days in a row, but another up day, where the Nasdaq was kind of faltering. I was watching this one early in the morning. Yeah, it came down a little bit, but man, buyers came in, pushed this thing higher. So look for the leaders and don't sell them just because they're down in pre-market, man. This thing's showing a hell of a lot of strength. And if you own Netflix, if the Nasdaq's going to crater, this how shall I put this? The Nasdaq could be weak and this thing could still be strong because this is one of the leading stocks. So don't look to the index, follow the leaders. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Earlier, I pointed out on the index that when the 10 here, the green line crossed above the 21, like back here, look what happened. It was down, what, 950? The green line crossed above the 21. The green is the 10, the 21 is the magenta. And then look what happened. It's getting in this power trend now. What did I say? It was like 950. Now it's at 11. It's almost $200 higher. So that's why I pay attention to the short-term moving averages. And so Netflix is showing total strength. We like Netflix. Another one, Palantir. I know this thing just can't be pushed down. I talk to my trading buddies every morning. Is like, yeah, they pushed it down, what, 110 today, 111. How long did it stay there? Like 5 minutes? I mean, gosh, this thing just constant buyers the whole day. Yeah, so if you bought calls in the morning there, I mean, just easy money. Now it's up after hours on the after hours news. This thing is consolidating within a base. Yeah, it's not making a new high like Netflix. But leading stocks don't have to make new highs. Once again, the 10 crossed above the 21. And what happened after that? Let me see here. This thing's just showing leadership. In fact, you don't have to look much past these two stocks. But if you want to have a sustained uptrend, we need this rally to branch out to many, many stocks and not just the golden insurance stocks. But I digress. All right, MicroStrategy looks good to me. Not making a new high, still consolidating there. I would like to see it get above that 404.42 number. It was just flat on this session, but once again, the 10 crossed above the 21. They're both above the 50. This isn't a power trend. Wouldn't be surprised to see this thing take out 400 real soon. Looks pretty good after hours moving up. So I think tomorrow is going to be a good day, at least open higher. Spotify, another one that reported yesterday. And I put a video together on Sunday night, put it in the education center of stocks that I think are going to be able to deliver strong earnings reports quarter after quarter, year after year. I'm not just interested in one quarter, but these guys have, the growth, sustained growth, which is, what I like. They had a strong earnings report yesterday and it sold off. Well, it sliced its 50 and people are freaking out. This is just a shakeout, folks. Shaking out your weak hands. I said it'll probably be over 600 next week, but decided to do it today. Just right back to, this double bottom base buy point. Now that the earnings are behind us, I'm going to put this one on our ready list for tomorrow. I should have done it today, but the market was kind of wonky. I didn't want to get too crazy with a bunch of stocks. But that 621.20 is certainly an area of interest. And I would just say, if it can take out today's high, 615.25, then it's go time for tomorrow. So that's what I'll be looking for Spotify tomorrow at what did I say, 615.25. Yeah. So that looks good to me. Another leading stock. I mean, is it making new highs? No, but it's damn close to new highs. 6% off of the highs, double bottom base. I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing rip higher and make new highs way before the indexes make new highs. And yes, the indexes can make new highs in 2025. Rubric, some of these computer software security names are just set up. Once again, the 10 through the 21 here, and now the 21's above the 50. This looks good to me. Did it rally today? No, it was just flat. But give it time. Another one in this group, CrowdStrike. I like this one. It was flat also. It sold off in the morning. I know some people sold their CrowdStrike because it was down. This is just panic selling, folks. Um, I know we have PTSD from the tariffs in the February and the March. We got hammered, and that's in the back of everybody's minds that they just want to get out to avoid the damage. But these are just little shakeouts. And if I go to a moving average of like 5, you can see that CrowdStrike is, finding support at the 5. There it is right there. Found support at the 5 today, which was 420. Nice number. And then rallied back above that level. But we'll see what happens tomorrow with CrowdStrike. But these are the leading stocks. And this is what I look for when, we get that type of, information that we got today. Like, we're going into a recession or the GDP was not good. SE is another one. Once again, not making new highs, but the 10 has crossed above the 21 back here, and now it's above the 50. So this thing looks like it's starting to get into a power trend. I do have this on the ready list. I think it's had a pretty decent week, all things considered. Yeah, it's up 5% this week. Thank you very much. What other ones do I have here that I'm looking at? Oh, Roblox. Well, they report tomorrow, but just kind of showing you relative strength where the 10 went through the 21. I like that one, but if you don't want to play the Roblox earnings, that's fine. Take Two, they don't report till the 15th. And this one, once again, the 10 and 21, 50 stack. This thing is making new highs. So if you want to look towards a leader, this is what you look towards. Um, I'm just showing you strength here because I'm a front runner. This is all I'm really interested in here. I'm not interested in picking bottoms. That's somebody else's style. This is just my style. And I just, I like strength. So call me a front runner. I don't care. Uber, another one showing strength. Ooh, cool blue. Yeah, I like this one. This one should be on my ready list as well. They report next week. If it could trade above today's high of 81.22, this is go time for me. I like Uber. I just like it. I didn't include it in my the video because it's got a huge market cap and I still think it's going to have strong earnings report. It's just not going to deliver 40, 50 or 60% sales growth, but 20% will do. And we just want the stock to trade higher. That's what it's all about, right? And you can see consolidation, base on base pattern. It's been consolidating a long time. I think it's go time for Uber. All right, that's enough of the leadership. That's enough of the index. I want to get to a couple of things. One, I mentioned the gold stocks, and they pulled back, but now they're showing support at the 21. I'm just trying to be open-minded and intellectually honest here. I would like to see these crash, but they're not. So they're holding up, and maybe they're offering, another buy point, in the future here. These are seen as, safe haven plays. This is AEM, Agnico Eagle, and it's showing this little flag type pattern, wedging in here. So that looks pretty good when you wedge lower on lighter volume, that's a real good indication. AU, Anglo Gold's another one, found support at the 21 and bounce. So I'm just pointing this out here, folks. I'm not buying gold. I'm just saying gold has been kind of, sold off recently, and now these stocks are not trading below their um, 21, like the insurance stocks, down to the 200. So just wanted to point that out. There's a big difference here between the insurance and the gold. So gold's still hanging in there, insurance not so much. All right, I'm going to move on to my favorite group, and that's, by now, the biotech group. High risk, high reward group. I had mentioned this one earlier about it's this to me, this is like a 6 week, base with the 43.32 buy point. Today they announced that they're going to report earnings on Monday. The CEO gave the shorts a couple of days to get out. Monday morning they're going to report. So shorts have time to cover today, tomorrow, and Friday. And after that, it's probably going to be a pretty strong report. Wall Street putting two and two together with the Roche earnings report and with the Novartis earnings report that, Briumvi is taking market share. How much? We don't know. What their sales are going to be, we don't know. But we do know they're taking market share, and it's probably going to be pretty significant. Once again, I changed this to the 5, did I not? I did when I was doing CrowdStrike. So now I should put it back because the 10 traded above the 21 here. And if I could get the track price, my little legend here, markup legend tool. I need you. Where are you? Help. I hit it from myself. I'm going to track price here. So this one is a leader and it's surfing the 5. You can see here, it just pulls back to the 5, pulls back to the 5. Once the 5 crossed above the 21 here, about 38 bucks, it's just been straight up. And like I said, last week, the Roche report and this week, the Novartis report, people are putting two and two together that these guys are taking market share. And now you can see the volume increase today because they're going to report earnings on Monday, and the shorts got to get the hell out of Dodge. I'm not saying this thing's going to break out and rip up, to 50 or whatever. It might, but it could also pull back with a strong report, buy the rumor, sell the news type of thing. So this has been my largest holding for a while, and I'll probably take some off before earnings because pigs get slaughtered. But also the other thing is their calls, their options are not liquid enough, and the spreads are too wide, so you really can't play a lot of options with this one. It's not there yet as a stock. But somebody's telling me it's an all-time high, not even close. This thing was like a $5,000 stock back in the day. Totally different company now. A one drug company, so carries a lot of risk with just one drug. But right now, best in class, the least expensive, although another criteria or part of the calculus for this earnings report is they raise prices recently. So they're not only they're gaining market share, but they raised prices. So probably going to be a pretty strong earnings report for TGTX and anything making new highs in this tape. I don't have to tell you, just look at those moving averages. This one's kicking ass. VRNA. I post in the morning, every morning, leading stocks, relative strength stocks at the bottom of my page. And I don't know if people are really paying attention to it. I should probably put it at the top. But some of these stocks are in there and they're showing strength. This is VRNA. They reported yesterday, had a nice response, just a little pullback today. Looked like an inside day today. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, just inside. Not bad. Down 1.5% after moving, quite a bit this week. I think it's up like 10% this week. We'll take that anytime. And sometimes, you got to look at these weekly charts here because it's consolidated in the base for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Going on to 9 weeks here. So to me, this thing hasn't even really broken out yet. Definitely one to watch. Definitely showing relative strength. And I should switch this back just because it's only fair, to look at the 10 because when the 10 crosses over the 21, that's when it's go time here. And it did that back here before earnings. Obviously, earnings carries risk, as we saw with another biotech stock, WGS. This one's in the outhouse today, pulled back to the 200. I don't really know a lot about this stock, but when I was digging around today, and some of the people were saying that, it's kind of a fraudulent name. They've been kind of bilking people. So Whenever I hear that, I stay away. I will say just technically that it broke out with last earnings up to 115, probably got ahead of itself a little bit, sold off down to 72 with the market, it's a totally weak market, then rallied back up into earnings. Like I said, buy the rumor, sell the news. The report was not that bad. I shouldn't say not that bad. Let me see. They didn't lose as much money as expected. So it was a beat that way. And they raised guidance going forward, but they did buy a company, and I don't know, it's just back to 66, which is this old base here. So base on base, which means you got to go back to the weekly chart and just look at this consolidation. And we're back to, October, November prices for WGS. And I don't like, to catch a falling knife. Some people do, hey, I can buy this stock for the same price it was trading at last November. Well, good for you. Go ahead. You know my style. I like buying strength, not weakness. Anyway, some other names in this group is Vertex. Some people were talking to me about Vertex. Say this thing is just a beast of a stock. If you just look at it longer term, yeah, lower left to upper right, it kind of trades at the beat of its own drum. It does not trade with the index, but you can just see over time there's 20 years of just powering higher, right? 10 to 500. So, that's a 50 bagger. Thank you very much for Vertex, and they've got a pretty good pipeline and quite a catalog. So this is another, I'm not all into speculative biotech stocks. This is a beast with, earnings. They're going to earn $20 in earnings next year. So yeah, very nice. So I got to go back to my speculative names. And this is Solana. Once again, made a high yesterday, inside day today, doing nothing wrong there, just kind of flat on the session. And then I have to mention a couple of buyouts. I think we're really in for a period of buyouts here. This administration is a little more friendly towards mergers and acquisitions. How shall I say? Yeah. Okay. RGLS was bought out by Novartis. Not a big deal, but another deal, so that's always positive. And then recently we saw SWTX SpringWorks was bought out by Merck. So that was a $3.9 billion deal. And so I think it was $47. It's trading at 46.30. So deals are good. So we're seeing some real strong action in the biotech sector. And it's been a long, long time. Man, this thing is just making me sick. This has been since yeah, I better get this out of here. Oh, no. Yeah, you thought this was the bottom, as it made this bottom with all this volume. Comes back and makes another bottom, base on base, double bottom, cup with handle, flat base, sells off. This thing is just cannot get out of its own way. But maybe, just maybe, it's showing a few weeks of strength here. And maybe, this thing could get rolling. It's been a long, long, long time for the biotech sector. It's due. Yeah, since the bear market of 21, it has done nothing. I'm talking 4 years of pain. So maybe we can get some leadership in here. And that's what I'm looking towards. Anyway, at mcstockcharts.com, thank you for watching. We never give up. In honor of the great Steve Jobs, I have one more thing. Also, Peter Falk said one more thing. Maybe Steve Jobs stole it from Peter Falk. Colombo. We have some earnings after hours. One is Microsoft. It was trading at 420, a great number, which we like. After hours, up 6%. Their Azure sales were stronger than expected. I think it was expected about 30%. They came in at 33. So this will drive the QQQs tomorrow. If you're into such things, QQQ should be up. Yeah, 1% after hours. Microsoft, big player in that, and also the Nasdaq and the Dow and the S&P, Microsoft's and everything. So, it's really sold off hard. It's been forever since this thing has had any upward momentum. It was trading at 468 last July. So good for Microsoft shareholders. It pays a dividend, it pays you to hold it, but it's been a lot of pain for a long time. So that's going to help tomorrow. Meta, you got to wait for the conference call on Meta because Zuckerberg's a wild card. It's up 5% after hours. This will help also the QQQs, not in the Dow, but will help the QQQs in the SPY. That's why I said I'm anticipating a little boost tomorrow at the open. Hopefully not too much of a spike, but a Thursday morning, reversal off that 21 today will be great for the Nasdaq. Robinhood reported, great report. This is another one that I had included in my video on Sunday night. I think I put it out in the Education Center. I expect these guys to report strong reports quarter after quarter, year after year. Now, they're not going to do 115% every quarter. I did not look in detail at the numbers, but I do know that it was a beat, significant beat, and they said a lot of positive things. It's flat after hours. I would expect this one, to rally. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not Friday, but next week after that report. I'll have more in the morning on Robinhood, but that was a real strong report. Qualcomm was selling off. Semiconductors have had a real rough time, down 6% after hours. GRBK, another home builder, yeah, down 3% after hours. That doesn't move a whole lot in after hours. Chemical specialty stock, Albemarle reported. I'll have more on that in the morning. And then the insurance name, Prudential, flat after hours. I'll have more on that in the morning. And we're going to hear from Eli Lilly tomorrow morning. Looking forward to that. McDonald's as well report. So maybe there was a leak today. It was up pretty decent. We'll see what McDonald's has to say on the backs of the Wingstop report. Roblox reports in the morning. It's been a real strong stock, acting like a leader. I mentioned that the 10, blew through the 21. It's been rallying ever since. So maybe it'll be a Salvin News situation. I don't know, but yeah, that's a nice chart. But WGS had a nice chart too, and it totally spit the bit. So don't just rely on technicals. You got to wait, hear from management, go through the data, and see how the stock reacts. But I'm expecting big things from Roblox tomorrow. Another couple that I'm interested, CVS, that is known for their the long receipts, paper trail. We'll see what they have to say. And MasterCard on the heels of Visa's report last night. That should be pretty decent. Shake Shack reports in the morning. Ugh, yeah, the retail restaurant stocks not looking too good. Quanta Services, building heavy construction. It's like a data center play. Trying to get above its 200 here. We'll see what they have to say. And then another home builder type stock, a supplier. This is a builder first source. They report in the morning. So we'll have more in the morning. Good day today, constructive day. When we see the Nasdaq, finding support at moving averages. Oh gosh, there's my annotations. Yeah, when you see it finding support, that's to me, that's real constructive. I showed you a bunch of leaders, real constructive. The bounce off the support, closing near the highs, real constructive. And then you see the QQQs and after hours bouncing on, positive news. I don't know. I think it's positive for tomorrow. I don't want to be too cheerleader-ish, I don't want to be a rah-rah. I want to be even keeled and just kind of read what the market's doing, just observing the action, not trying to put my bias into it. But I'm always kind of biased to the long side because, as I showed, the longs win eventually. Thank you very much for watching at mcstockcharts.com. We never give up.